Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I am Arif and I welcome you all to the next session of the lecture series on Internet Working with Linux. In the previous session, that is lecture 17, we discussed some important concepts and terms to prepare the ground for this session. If you haven't seen the session on Overview of Domain Name System, I strongly recommend that you should first see that section and then come on this one. This session deals with installing, configuring and using Bind, Berkeley Internet Name Domain Server, as a private network DNS server. Our lab environment consists of 4 machines. On the Ubuntu server machine, we will be installing and configuring Bind, and there will be 3 clients, our Kali Linux machine, the Windows XP and Windows 10 machine. The domain name that I'm using is arif.edu.pk, and of course the fully qualified domain name of our machines will be ns1.arif.edu.pk, which will be the Ubuntu server, and host1.arif.edu.pk, which will be Kali Linux, host2.arif.edu.pk, which will be Windows XP, and finally host3.arif.edu.pk, which will be Windows 10. Okay, enough of intro. Let us move on to the terminal and start playing. Let me move on to the Kali machine first. Let me do cat @c host. This is a static lookup for host names and it contains mapping for the local hosts only. Let me also cat @c network interfaces file, and you can see these 2 lines. The only interface ETH0 is getting its TCP IP configuration parameters via DHCP. And of course the DHCP request message will be broadcasted on the LAN, and our PTCL broadband router will send this machine the TCP IP configuration parameters. And of course I have configured it as such that this machine will get the IP of 192.168.1.101. Let me do sudo ifconfig, and you can see the address 192.168.1.101. Let me also do cat @c resolve.conf, and you can see the resolver configuration file. We have the name server set to 192.168.1.1, which is the IP of the PTCL broadband router. Let me do ns lookup for, let's suppose, ubuntu.com, ubuntu.com, and you can see the server, that is my PTCL broadband router, which is configured as a DNS server as well, is resolving the name to 91.189.94.40, and I can always dig ubuntu.com, and over here as well in the answer section you can see the resource record, which is giving me the IP of ubuntu.com. Let me move on to the Ubuntu server machine as well. Let me do cat @c host. You can see the same settings over here as well, and let me cat @c network interfaces file as well, and you can see it is also configured to get its TCP IP parameters from the DHCP server. Let me do cat @c resolve.conf. Let me correct the spellings. resolv.conf. And you can see the name server is 192.168.1.1, which is the IP of the PTCL broadband router. Over here as well, I can do ns lookup ubuntu.com. We have covered this in the previous session as well. And we can always do dig ubuntu.com. Okay, fine. Let me clear screen. Let us move on to the third machine, and that is the Windows 10 machine. Let me open the command prompt and let me do ipconfig, and you can see the configuration parameters, and the IP is of course 192.168.1.103, and I can use the switch /all with ipconfig to get more details of it. You can see the DHCP server 192.168.1.1. You can see the DNS server. This is also configured on the same router. Okay, over here as well, the host file that you all know is located in Windows System32 drivers and etc directory. That also contains only the IP to host mapping for the local host. Let me do ns lookup for ubuntu.com, and you can note that we have got the answer, and the answer has been provided by the PTCL broadband router having the IP 192.168.1.1. Okay, dear students, although the DNS service is running on our PTCL broadband router, but we want to install and configure the DNS server on our Ubuntu server machine. Over here. And we also want that the Kali Linux and the Windows 10 and the Windows XP machine should access the DNS server running on this machine. This is quite similar to what we did in our DHCP server session as well. Let's do the installation first. Okay. Let me do SSH root at 192.168.1.100. Let me log into my Ubuntu server machine from Kali machine. I'm doing this to have a better view of the console instead of the black screen of Ubuntu server. This is more readable. Remember, I am on my Ubuntu server machine as root. Okay, apt-get update. You need to do the update first. Let me do the install directly, and let me install bind 9. And bind 9 is Berkeley Internet Name Domain. This is the most widely used name server software and is supported by the Internet System Consortium as well. Let me also install bind 9 utils as well as bind 9 doc. So these are already the latest versions. Before I run the bind 9 service, let us set it to IPv4 mode, and for this we need to edit the bind 9 system unit file. Let me open it at C systemd system bind 9.service. This is a systemd service unit file, and you can see the unit section, the service section, and the install section. And we know service unit files are for daemons or services that can be started, stopped, reloaded, enabled, or disabled. Maybe in your default setting over here you might see $options. So you need to write down -u bind -4. You just need to edit this exec start directive, and then you need to save and exit. Let us now reload the daemon and start the service. Systemctl daemon reload, systemctl restart bind named.service, and let me check the status now. While the service is running, let me see the port number of DNS from the etc services file by grabbing, let's suppose, domain from here, and you can see the port is 53. Let me use netstat as well, and let me grab port number 53, and you can see 192.168.1.100:53. Our Ubuntu server machine is having a process that is listing on port number 53. Well, now our DNS software bind9 is installed and running on our Ubuntu server machine. Well, let's see the configuration files. Well, dear students, all the configuration files for bind are there in etc bind directory. And over here you can see the named.conf file. This is the main configuration file which reads the options and the local file configuration as well. This file is also of our interest, named.conf.options, which contains the options for the name daemon. Then we have named.conf.local file. We are also going to deal with this. And finally, we are going to create the forward zone files and the reverse zone files as well. So let's start playing. Let me do vim named.conf.options. Okay. Once you will open this file, you will see only one block, and that will be the options block, and that too containing just these 3 or 4 lines. Just to save time, I have configured the options part, and let me discuss them so that you should be able to understand them. You need to create this portion. This is optional, however. You are going to create the access control list with the name of trusted, and you need to put all the IP addresses of the machines in your local area network for which you want to configure your bind service. This 192.168.1.100, this is the IP address of the Ubuntu server machine, which will be named as NS1 on my domain. 101 is the address of the Kali Linux, 102 is the address of the Windows XP, and 103 is the address of the host 3 running Windows 10 operating system. So by writing these, we are just going to make sure that no other machine should be able to access our DNS server. Over here we have the options block. This is the directory var cache bind. You need to keep it to the same value if you are using Ubuntu. If you are using some other distribution, you can find out the path. Recursion, yes. This enables the recursive queries from our trusted host. Allow recursion trusted. This is also related to recursion. Then listen on. This contains the IP address of the Ubuntu server machine. You need to keep the IP address of whatever machine you want that you should listen for the DNS service. Allow transfer, none. This disables zone transfer by default. I personally recommend that you should disable it. Otherwise, you can keep the IP of some other server over here. Then we have the forwarders block. If we do not have the zone files for any name or any domain. The request will be forwarded to either this IP as a primary DNS server or to this IP which is a secondary DNS server. And you might be knowing these are the addresses of the Google name servers. Finally, this is for the security part, and after writing all this to the file named.conf.options, you need to save and you need to exit. So we have done configuring the options file. The next part is to configure the named.conf.local file. So let me open this file now, named.conf.local. Okay, so this file does not contains the configuration. Yes, it does. On your file, you may come across only these lines, which are just the few comments. What you need to do is you need to put these lines in this file. The zone is arif.edu.pk. This is the domain for which we want to work on. Type is master, that is, this is the master server. Then we have the file, and the file should point to the forward zone file, and the forward zone file will be located in @c bind zones directory, and the name of the file will be db dot whatever is your domain name. And since this is our domain name, so I have written db.arif.edu.pk. So this is the absolute path name of the zone file. Then we have a lot transfer over here. You can add the IP of a secondary DNS server. It is recommended to have one, but for simplicity, I'm just having a primary DNS server. So this is the zone block, and the next is another zone block for reverse lookup. And remember, I am working on a subnet. Let me write it down for you. That is 192.168.1.0. This is the network address. So this is the subnet. So keeping that in mind, you need to give it a name. And in the name part, you can observe that I have written just the network portion, that is 192.168.1 in the reverse order, 1.168.192. And after that, you need to write .in-addr.arpa. Type is again master, since this is a master server, DNS server, and the file here we need to give the absolute path of our reverse zone file. And note the name that starts from db dot as over here as well, and after db you need to write the IP part of the network portion only, and the network portion is 192.168.1. and over here again I have written allow transfer none. Okay, so we are done with the named.conf.local file, and we have mentioned a forward and a reverse zone for the domain arif.edu.pk. So this can contains multiple zones for different domains, but right now we have just one domain, that is arif.edu.pk, and this is for the forward zone file and this is for the reverse zone file. Let me save and exit. Okay, so now you are done with the two configuration files, and if you want to check that you have not made any syntax error while putting the entries in these files, you can use the command named-checkconf. If the name daemon configuration files have no syntax error, you will not see any error message over here. And if there is an error in any of those files, the error message will be displayed. Remember, let me put an error somewhere in the local file. Let's suppose I do a typo over here. Let me run the above command again, and you can see the error is there. So come up over here again, correct the error, save and exit, and relaunch named-checkconf. So there are no errors now. Okay, the next task we need to do is we need to create a forward zone file and a reverse zone file, which we have just mentioned in the named.conf.local. Well, dear students, the forward zone file is the place where we are going to define DNS resource records for forward DNS lookups. And we need to create it on the path we just mentioned in the named.conf.local file. Right now we are in this directory. Let me mkdir zones. Okay, mkdir zones. It already exists, so let me cd2 zones. And let me remove all the files if there are in this directory. Okay. Right now I'm in @c bind zones, and over here I need to create a forward zone file. And instead of starting from the scratch, let me copy the file from @c bind db.local to the present working directory with the name of db.arif.edu.pk. Okay, so let me open it in Vim. So this will give us a quick start. This $TTL is having a value of 604,800. This is basically the time to live. Time to live is the time in seconds for which our caching name server can use this information. After this time expires, the caching name server must query the authoritative name server again for the address and name mapping. Okay, this is actually the first resource record. This @sign. You can write down the domain name over here as well. For example, arif.edu.pk. But let it be @sign. The second is the internet, IN. The third is the start of authority. This start of authority is a mandatory record in all zones file. This must be the first record. After this, we have the local host written over here, and let me write down ns1.arif.edu.pk. Do keep the dot at the end, which I have put. So this is the primary name server for this domain. The domain is arif.edu.pk and the host name is ns1. Remember, ns1 is the name of the Ubuntu server machine, host name of the Ubuntu server machine. And the next is, after a space, I'm giving the email address of the admin for this zone, and let me say admin.arif.edu.pk. Okay, fine. And then we have certain more parameters. So first is serial, that is 2. This is zone serial number, and every time you edit a zone file, you must increment this number. So since I'm making a change in it, so let me make it 3. The slave servers will check if the master server serial number for a zone file is larger than the one they have on their system, then they will request the updated zone file. Otherwise, they will continue with the old one. So since I have changed this, all the slave server will update their own zone files and get this record. And if I don't change this, they will not. Then we have the zone refresh interval. This is the number of seconds after which the slave DNS server will try to get the updated zone file from the master DNS server. This is the zone retry interval. If the slave DNS server cannot connect to the master DNS server, it will wait for this much number of seconds and then it will try again. So this is retry. Then we have the expiry period. If a slave name server has not been able to contact the master for this much number of seconds, it no longer returns responses as an authoritative source for this zone. So in that case, you will get a non-authoritative answer. Finally, this is the negative cache TTL, that is the amount of time the name server will cache a name error. Okay, so let's move and put the records over here. The first record I want to put in is for the internet and for the name server, and the name is ns1.arif.edu.pk. Well, this NS resource record, this line defines the name server that is used for this zone. We should have at least 2 name servers defined for each zone in order to operate correctly, but for just simplicity and saving time, I'm using 1. You must use 2 such records. After this, we are going to put in the type A records. So over here I can write @, and you can always think of writing ns1.arif.edu.pk. so this is for internet, and this is a type A record, so let me put an A over here. And over here I need to, oops, I am doing a bit wrong. This is not a type A record. I need to keep the NS record over here. So this is NS. And this is ns1.arif.edu.pk. So I should not change this, rather I should change these records. Let me put a new line over here as well. ns1.arif.edu.pk. So this is an internet type A, and let me put the IP over here, 192.168.1.100, and of course this is the IP address of the Ubuntu server machine, having the fully qualified domain name as mentioned over here. Okay, let me copy this and paste it. Okay, so after this I have the other machine, that is host 1, and having the IP of 101. So this is the Kali machine, record for the Kali machine. Then I have host 2, and I have to give the IP address of host 2, that is 192.168.1.102. This is my Windows XP machine. And then I have host 3, and this is having the IP of 103, and this is my Windows 10 machine. Remember, we need to put an entry for all the machines which are there in the domain arif.edu.pk over here. And we need to mention the IP addresses, and this A is basically the type. The type A record are used to map a host to IPv4 address. We can have a tetra A resource record to map a host to IPv6 address. And similarly, we can have other types of resource records as well. Okay, dear students, this is a zone file for the domain arif.edu.pk. The more zone files a named server has, the more queries it will be able to answer authoritatively. Let's save it. And after saving it, let me confirm whether I have done any typo or everything has worked fine. I can always use name d-check zone. So this is a command that is used to check for any syntax error in the zone files. And it is given two arguments. The first argument specifies the zone name, and the zone name is arif.edu.pk. And the second argument specifies the corresponding zone file, and the corresponding zone file is, let me give the absolute path, @c bind zones, and within zones db.arif.edu.pk. So once I press enter, I get an OK message. That means my forward zone file is OK and is loaded now. The next task is to create a reverse zone file, and this is where we will define resource records for reverse DNS lookups. And we need to create it on the same place where we mentioned in the named.conf.local file, and that is of course in @c bind zones. Let me get @c bind named.conf.local file. And over here you can see the path of the reverse zone file, and you can keep track of the name. The name is db.192.168.1, so you need to remember this. The way we have copied a template file, we are going to copy a template file for the reverse zone as well from @c bind db.127. So this is the template for the reverse zone file, and we need to copy it in, of course, @c bind zones, and inside zones we need to name it db.192.168.1. remember the naming convention. And let me open this now, db.192.168.1. so this is the template file. Let me change minus changes in it to suit our needs. Okay, so over here at place of localhost I need to mention arif.edu.pk. So remember the last dot, then we need to give the email, that is admin dot, remember instead of placing an @ sign, I'm placing a dot over here. So this is the convention, admin dot arif.edu.pk dot. Then we have the serial, refresh, retry, expire, negative cache, the same values we discussed before. And then we need to put the NS record. The NS record is for ns1.arif.edu.pk. Once again, don't forget to put a dot at the end. And then we need to put the PTR resource records over here. So the PTR resource records will be, since we are working for class C addresses, so I'm just putting the last 100 over here. Then we have internet resource record type is PTR, and then I need to put the name over here, ns1.arif.edu.pk. Let me copy this. So this was for Ubuntu server, this is for Kali, and the fully qualified domain name for Kali is host1, and this record is for the Windows XP machine, and the fully qualified domain name is host2, and this is for Windows 10, and the fully qualified domain name is host3.arif.edu.pk. Well, dear students, remember this PTR is the resource record type. We discussed these in our previous session. PTR is actually the inverse of A or tetra A resource records, and PTR record is used to map IP address to host name. Okay, so let me save and exit this file, and let me check for syntax error. named-check zone, and the first argument, as I've already said, is the name of the zone file. That is, second argument is the name of the zone file. First argument is the zone name, and previously the zone name was arif.edu.pk, and this time the zone name is 1.168.192. Remember, in the reverse order, 192.168.1. So we are writing 1.168.192 .in-addr.arpa. So this argument specifies the zone, the reverse zone, and then we need to give the second argument is the path of the reverse zone file, and in the present working directory the name of the file is db.192.168.1. so it is loaded, so there are no errors in both the zone files. So let me do systemctl restart bind 9.service, and let me check the status. Okay, so the bind 9 service is up and running on our Ubuntu server machine. The next task is we need to go on to the client side. Okay, dear students, please note down I am right now on the Kali machine. Let me do if config sudo if config, and you can check out that this is the IP 192.168.1.101. Well, let me do cat etc resolve.conf. You can see right now the name server is 192.168.1.1. I need to change it, so let me do sudo vim etc resolve.conf. I need to edit this file, so let me remove the entries, and instead of the IP address of my PTCL broadband router, let me give 192.168.1.100, and let me give a secondary name server as the IP address of the Google name server, and that is having the IP of 8.8.8.8. Okay, so I think that is enough. Okay, you're done. Now let me check out. Let me use host command, and let me get the IP of ubuntu.com. Let me correct the spellings. ubuntu, ubuntu.com. You can see ubuntu.com has this address. Pretty fine. Okay, so let me use ns lookup. This is another command we discussed in the previous session, and let me do ubuntu.com, and you can see it has find out the address of ubuntu.com, that is 91.189.94.40, and please note down the server address. It has not been resolved by the server which is running on our own Ubuntu server. Let me do ns lookup to let's suppose host 3.arif.edu.pk. This time you can see that this name has been resolved by the DNS server which is running on our Ubuntu server machine. And if I do, let's suppose, ns1, and you all must be knowing that this is the name, absolute path name, rather the fully qualified domain name of our Ubuntu server machine, having the IP of 192.168.1.100. And you can see that address over here. So that means it is working. And of course, we have used the dig command as well. Let me use dig on host 3.arif.edu.pk, which is of course the Windows 10 machine having the IP of 192.168.1.103. Okay, so let me scroll it a little bit. Okay, let me again discuss these sections. The first is the header section of the dig command. Dig command is a better command to use, so do practice this. This header section displays dig command version, its global options, and you can also see some additional header information over there. Then we have the question section, and the question section contains the question we asked, that is the IPv4 address of the host 3.arif.edu.pk. Okay, and after the question section you have the answer section. And in the answer section, you can see the 5 tuples of the DNS resource record. That is, the first we have the domain name, then we have the TTL, the time to live, then the class, that is internet, then is the type of the record, that is A, and then we have the value, and this type tells you that this is the IPv4 address. Then you can see the authority section. The authority section displays the name of the machine running the name service for arif.edu.pk. For arif.edu.pk domain, this is the machine which is running the service, that is ns1. And well, over here in the additional section, it displays the IP address of this machine. And finally, of course, you have the statistics section that displays the query time, which is almost 0, and if we query ubuntu.com, it will be of course more. Let me dig ubuntu.com. Excuse me, and you can see the query time is 295 milliseconds. Well, this was forward lookup. We can always do reverse lookup using dig. Let me do dig -x, and let me use the IP of 192.168.1.103, which is IP of the Windows 10 machine having the name host 3.arif.edu.pk. So let's check out. Yes, so this is the answer. And the answer you can see host 3.arif.edu.pk. Okay, dear students, let me move on to the Windows 10 machine as well now. On the Windows 10 machine, let me first configure the DNS server. Open the control panel, and in the control panel we have network and sharing, and then we have over here change adapter settings. This is the Ethernet adapter. Go to properties, and inside properties select TCP IP version 4, select properties. Over here you can see it is obtaining the IP address automatically from the PTCL broadband router, and it is also getting the DNS server address automatically. Let me say you need to use 192.168.1.100. So this is the IP of the Ubuntu server machine, and let me give the secondary DNS as 8.8.8.8, IP of the Google name server. Let me press OK, close, and let me come up over here and let me do ns lookup host 1.arif.edu.pk. Sorry for the typo. ns lookup. So you can see it has not responded. Well, it has responded. It has given you the address of ns1 as 192.168.1.101, and let me do ping as well. Well, dear students, you can always ping ns1.arif.edu.pk, which is the name of the Ubuntu server machine. We are pinging it. Let me ping host 1.arif.edu.pk, which is the name of the fully qualified domain name of the Kali machine we are pinging. And let me do ping host 2 as well. And we are not pinging host 2 because this is the fully qualified domain name of Windows XP. And let me check out Windows XP. Well, Windows XP is not running right now, so that is why I'm not getting the response. And of course, I can ping myself while sitting on Windows 10, that is host 3, and you can see I'm pinging. Okay, dear students, that is all for domain name system. I hope it was informative for you all. If you have liked it, please subscribe my YouTube channel and share it with your friends. Happy learning and Allah Hafiz.